Gorgeous.
Oh my gosh, you look really nice.
Beautiful. Thank you.
You know what I forgot? I forgot to ask you for your bio. I know that you are interviewing me, but I really like to give people some context because I will be simultaneously doing this on Instagram, part of it.
Mm,
But when we get into the meat of the situation, I'm going to turn Instagram off so that people who are, who have my free content have something to look forward to. That's what this is called, Freestyle Fridays. Um, but I'm going to start to incorporate interviews from me, like me and people that I know having a conversation. I didn't know if you had
mm.
Instagram or not. So do you have
I
Instagram?
did. I do.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, there you go. But this is very special. So I want you to tell me a little bit about yourself first before we start.
Okay. Well,
Yes,
I am originally from the beautiful Paradise, Belize, and I, since 9 years old, have been living in Chicago, the U.S., and I know you're in Germany. So, hello, neighbor.
these cold places.
Yeah,
Hi.
yeah. But since 2019, I've actually been in Virginia with family and enjoying what all the lovely, hospitable Virginians have to bring. And
Okay.
since then, I've also launched my social media marketing and management business. I'm
Okay.
currently independent.
Oh,
So,
yay.
yeah, it's been great. It's been great. Thank you for inviting me to be in this radio
Yeah.
interview with you.
No, thank you for
The
agreeing to be
starlets, Mrs.
here.
North.
I didn't know that you were. So we've worked together on a couple of projects, doing some graphic stuff, online flyers and stuff like that for my business. I didn't know that you were independent. I thought that you just kind of did it on the side and were working for a company.
Mhm.
Um, how are you finding business is for you in this time, these very special times?
Well, a lot of people, even before the pandemic, this rise of entrepreneurship culture, self-employed culture
Okay,
was booming. And
really?
so there's a lot of small business owners who have the idea, they have the vision, but then the next step is how do I brand this vision that I have? And so
Right. Okay.
that's where I found a place for me to assist. And it wasn't originally my intention to be a social media manager, just as you mentioned on the side, help here and there. But
Hmm.
I realized that it's a market that a lot of people, especially older business owners, they're finding an
Hmm.
annoyance with having to focus too much on, Facebook, Instagram, then Twitter, then TikTok. And so
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I knew I
Is
could, dive into that area for
Yeah,
them.
do you think that it's for everyone though? Like, I mean, is it I don't want, what's the word for notlich? Nötig. Necessary, yeah. Is it necessary for everybody to have a social media presence?
It's necessary for the average business owner. If you already have a organic, large, loyal network that you say you run into these people quite often, or you are locally famous and you just walk down the street and you have people who recognize you because you're renowned, you're respected. You don't need to do any ads per se. And your audience is more organic, and you're more
If you're
you have
Nike.
your following. Yeah. Yeah, because I know some millionaires, if you go on their Facebook page you wouldn't even know that they're
Yeah,
millionaires, but
right? Yeah.
yeah.
I guess that was kind of the thing that I was struggling with. Like, is it for everybody? Is it something that I want to do? And I just kind of did like, I kind of like play around with it in the beginning and it
Yeah.
didn't work. It was just a disaster because like, this is easy. And then I was just like, no, it's not. It is absolutely not. It is very
Time
hard. I should
consuming.
It's yeah, it is time consuming. It's like, wow, I should probably get somebody to help me with this. So when you and I spoke, it was just like, oh yeah, we can do this, and do you have this and do you have that? And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I didn't even know how much I didn't know, you know.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna tag you in my Instagram interview so that you can take a look and promote that and have this conversation for yourself so you can listen back to it. But I just want to big you up and thank you for helping me out, guys. She's great, very patient, very gracious too. At the, I was real ignorant, and she was just like, "Okay, that's a very good question." It was probably a stupid question, but
No,
she never
no,
said that. She was just like, "Okay, that's a good question, and this is what it means, and this is so." Thank you for that. That really helped me. Um,
most welcome.
yes, yes, welcome. So what you got for me?
Well, I have some really nice questions to ask you.
Uh-huh. I heard.
So, Mrs. Nahanda Helmker with Forever
Yeah.
Jewel, how would you describe what you do?
Um, I
Loaded
think,
question, right?
yeah, right? Like, that was a mistake to have you ask me that question. Um, Let me close off some of these things here. I don't need any of these. I think how I describe what I do is I'm a teacher. I think that teaching is an important element of life, and even though I could define what I do specifically as, okay, I teach English, I teach German, I am always looking for new and innovative ways to help people learn what it is they need to know to learn and grow. Yeah. And so I like to be a part of the creative process and people's creative journey.
Mm,
Yeah.
okay,
So I incorporate
that's beautiful.
art. Hmm?
That's
Which,
beautiful.
oh, thank you. Yeah, I like to incorporate art and storytelling and motivation into like language learning specifically.
Mhm.
But also, I started branching out into science learning and also
Mm,
into personal development. So when people think of like
okay.
the word coach or accompaniment, I like to think of myself as along that lines. And a lot of the times it's like, well, what does one thing have to do with the other? Like you're learning something specific or you're learning something personal. They're very intricate because people's attitudes towards learning is very retrospective of where they're at personally. And as a teacher, you learn that in the classroom, you know?
Mm.
It's like, okay, there's a culture amongst the students themselves, and
Mm.
there is right? Everybody's coming from a different place, and somebody never eat, or somebody was up all night playing video games.
Mhm.
Somebody's mom, you know, told them why they never ironed their shirt before they came here. Like so everybody's going through something personally, and all
Yeah.
of that affects a person's attitude towards learning. And
Mm.
so I realized that never goes away, you know. Um, that is always with you when you're growing, and we're very unconscious of that process. And I try to, well, I help people bring more consciousness to the process so that they can make better choices.
Yes.
But I have to
Okay.
label it, I'd say coach.
Yeah.
Coach and
And so,
teacher.
as a teacher and coach who's aware of all of these, your clients' background and not knowing initially where they come from, what, as a teacher, what is your core beliefs and values in dealing with your clients?
My belief system is that everybody has the ability to learn if they can let go of the things that they believe about themselves. You know,
Mhm.
um, if you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. I was just saying that before we came
Yep.
online. If you fight for your limitations, you get to keep your limitations. I'm not going to motivate you into doing something that we're going to continue going in circles about, but he did this, or but this is this way, and I've always been this way. If that's going to be your mindset, um,
Mhm.
I believe that people can only go as far as they want to go, and that is limited or limitless as to how creative you are and how willing you are to move forward. Um, I
Mm,
value family like nothing else, even more so now than before. So I'm a huge, huge advocate of the family way. You know,
yeah.
I don't believe that people should be alone or by themselves, and
Mm,
I'm very grateful and thankful, even more so now that I have a family, I have a husband, I have children, because they're the ones that remind me of how beautiful and how special life is. So
yeah.
yeah, and I
Which
believe
leads
in,
me,
sorry, I was gonna say my last belief is in a higher power that helps us to discover our full potential.
amen. Which does lead me to the next question. What are some of the challenges that you face in your work?
Time management.
You?
Like, why do we have 32-hour days? You know, you too. Like, the
Yeah.
day's done already. No, time management is definitely a thing that I have always struggled with. I think I was a little better when I used to work for someone. Now that I work for myself, I get to tell myself, "Oh, you deserve the day off," you know? So so that temptation is always there to just be like, oh my gosh, time management. But check it out, guys. I'm getting better. Look at that. I have months and months of plans right there. Like, it's always in my face. You have to do this day, and so time management is definitely a thing. Work-life balance. I am always challenged by remembering to take care of myself,
Mhm.
because days will go by. I could remember um, lecturing my kids about eating their vegetables, and my daughter was like, have you drunk any water today? So
Ah.
simple little thing like drinking water has
Yeah.
always not always been, but there's always a tendency or a temptation to get really into your work and not remember your family and yourself. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned your daughter with helping you remember to drink your water. What are other like background steps that help you deal with the challenges that you have in your line of work, like with time management, as you just mentioned?
Self-awareness. So I try to take time out, or I do take time out every day. And it might
Mhm.
seem like a lot, guys, half an hour every day if I divide it up into 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes before I go to bed at night, to just um, recollect and think about the things that I improved in my life of that day, and to always be
Mhm.
intentional about those things. And that is a meditation, a giving thanks. Like it's a prayer, but the
Yeah.
prayer has to include, I'm thankful for this, I've improved this, and I can't wait to start again tomorrow. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's how I begin and I start my day, so that I'm priming myself for making sure that I'm handling whatever it is that comes to me. And I'm
Yeah.
also able to let go of the things that I really honestly don't have any control over. Like, okay, that's not my issue. That person has a problem. I'm not going to take
Yeah.
on their issue. So I can make
Yeah.
that distinction better when I'm able to start my day with priming and end my day with thanks. And, well, actually, begin and end with thanks and prime
Mhm.
myself. And running, like, I gotta run at least 3 times a
Okay.
week, because then I can't sleep.
Mhm.
um
Yeah.
and even though it's mentally challenging, the work that I do, um
Hey.
these kids, man. Even though it's mentally challenging, I think that I'm more alert and more aware when I am able to physically move.
Mhm.
And chores
Okay.
don't count.
Yeah.
Cleaning the house does not count
Yeah.
as exercise. I mean, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you talk about power tools of the human experience and how we can utilize that for our success. So,
Yeah.
what are these power tools, and how do you use them?
The power tools, um, the power tools are a given. Everybody has these. You have your imagination. So that has to do with creativity, like I spoke of before. The universal language that binds everybody together is art, some form of artistic expression. And that is how we share our interaction with the world. You know how I see the world, how you listen to poetry, you listen to music, you watch movies, you read a book, you admire a beautiful painting. This is a connecting glue that connects people to each other. And is that a kid or a bird?
Yeah, there's some kiddos in the background.
You see, exactly. And that's a beauty about having children. They are so creative. Like
Yeah.
you watching a child play is the ultimate reminder of how creative human beings are. And we never
Yes.
lose that. You know, we
Mhm.
tend to try to oppress it when people tell you, shh, be quiet, don't do that, stop that. But we are always creative in imagining a better world or a more fun world or the solution to a problem. So I use that. And always remember that whatever it is you're focusing your attention on is what's growing in your life, right?
Mm.
Whether or not you do it consciously or unconsciously. So if it's going to be pandemic this and vaccine that, then that's the thing that's going to be growing. Not to say that
Yeah.
you want to ignore your problems, but
Yes.
those are the things that, we literally change things microscopically when we focus on them. They change their physical anatomy. The more we are paying attention to that thing, that's what's growing, right? And
Mm.
so being aware of what you're focusing on, not by force, like, oh, don't focus on that, don't focus on that, but what is it that I really want? What is it
Mm.
that I need? What will make me feel better now, right? And
Yes.
to give as much attention as much as possible on that thing. That's the second power tool. And the third power tool is your feelings. How are you this is the emotional aspect that God has given us that can help us to guide us to where we need to be. Is how do I feel when I get up and go to my job? How do I feel when I'm speaking to this person? How do I feel about anything? And yeah, it might be simplifying it to say, if you feel bad, stay away from it. If it
Yeah.
feels good, continue. But if you are not getting that inspiration of good feeling and joy when you're interacting with anyone, and I mean anyone, your children, your wife, your kids, if your
Mhm.
parents, then it's time to really figure out a different way of interacting, or maybe just distance for a moment, until you can get to a place of strength where it's not causing this eruption. So
Yeah.
I tend to focus on my feeling to guide me how in which direction I need to be going in.
Mhm.
And then I act on those emotions. That's the fourth power tool is movement, motion. What are some of the necessary actions, small as they may be? $1, 1 cent, or one little thing. I'm not going to react this way the next time this happens. I'm going to do something different. That is the choice of moving in the right direction. And sometimes it's needle points, sometimes it's a foot or mile wide long. But I feel like those power tools can help you step by step change your life. And you can apply that to anything.
Mm.
And it can be challenging sometimes, and sometimes it can be really easy. But the self
Yeah.
awareness it is what helps that. So those four power tools. I'll list them
Okay.
again: imagination, attention,
Mhm.
feelings, and motion, action. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, obviously, you are an intellectual woman, a powerful and confident woman. So, do you consider yourself to be more spiritual or more religious as a woman of faith?
Another question I regret. I'm gonna answer this question off camera. No, I think everybody. Okay, so like the other day, a very dear friend of mine um, reached out to me. Well, I reached out to him, and I'm like, hey, I want to interview you for my podcast, and he just happened to be a Catholic priest, right? And I used to go to confession to him, and we really developed this really close friendship. And one time I just went to visit. It wasn't like a confession. It was just, hey, how's it going? Let's have a cup of coffee. And he said to me, I've been meaning to ask you, because I said to him, I don't agree with everything the church teaches, but I'm still Catholic. I'm convicted in that. And he was like, what is it that you have an issue with in the church? And so we got into this intellectual discussion about some of the things that I was challenged with. And he was just like, yeah, that's just the way it is. And you're just going to have to live with it. Just like you. And I didn't like that answer, like, obviously, because I'm an intellectual person and I have to know the why, like, but why? and and he was like, well, think of it like this. Christ died, that's also a psychological. Christ died for our sins. Like, what does that mean? It was like, well, it's a psychological thing as well as a scriptural thing. And what it means is that not everything. The way it works is that, in order to be renewed, you have to leave certain things behind. You die when you leave certain things behind. The old you no longer can exist within you. And there are plenty of scriptures that talk about this. And I really, of course, it was unsettling still that I had to then acknowledge that there were issues, personal issues, as to why this was a problem for me. But to also understand that if I really wanted to strive for the absolute perfection that I could possibly strive for in my life, even though I may never get there, I can always know that the purpose of purifying gold is to rid every single gram of gold of impurity. And who wouldn't want that? And it's painful, because that's what life is. It's painful.
Yeah.
And we don't grow or learn from our comforts. We learn from our growth and our mistakes and our painful experiences. And so when I reflected more on that, then it became very clear to me that I was both spiritual and religious, because I need that reminder. I can't do it on my own. And that's why coaching is so beautiful and important, because you can't do it on your own. You can't be your own doctor. And I might not agree or like it, but I know that it's good for me. I don't like Brussels sprouts, but I eat them because I want to be healthy and strong. So being both spiritual and religious is a daily, not daily, but it's a challenge that I face often. But I would say that I'm somewhere in the middle, depending on what the situation is. I'm only human.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So yeah, a little bit of both.
Mhm. So, have you ever had to face a level of adversity that made you feel like giving up on your dreams?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Speak
I
on it.
was I was prepared to talk about that actually. I've faced several adversities, and but the one that stuck out to me the most when I wrote that question was this time when I was in England. I think I was talking to a client the other day about it, that I was in so I was supposed to be married, and I had built my career, and I decided I was going to retire early, and was convinced by my fiance at the time to quit my job and to go off and marry him. And so I left, and I left my daughter behind, and I just went up there, and the plan was that we would be married, and then I would come back home and get my daughter. And while I was there, it was very evident that his parents didn't want me as their daughter-in-law. There was too much
Mm.
at stake, and because I was black and I was from a country nobody heard of, and
Mm.
I mean these people were cream of the crop, and they wanted him to marry someone from their culture and race. And so because it was me, and on top of that I had a child, it was just like, no, this is not how this is going to go. And
mm,
he folded under the pressure. Long story short, we left to elope, and the day before we were to elope, um, he changed his mind and he disappeared. And I thought like they had kidnapped him or something. And I was
mm,
calling him, he wasn't answering. And long story short, he just said, I changed my mind, and I I don't want to do this. And I found that out a month later when I had gone back home. Like I was left in the hotel room with no money, no passport, and nowhere to go. And I'm glad that it happened like that, so that I could get the shock of reality that, hey,
mm,
if something is not for you, then you really have to pay attention to letting that go. Because if, there's a difference between like fighting for a man and being dishonorable, you know?
mm,
And there are other dynamics. Like, it wasn't completely his fault. He had found out some things about an ex who was a little bit crazy. And so the,
mm,
the time that I had by myself to really reflect on the mess that was my life was the point that I was like, well, if I really want to be married, then I have to really, really be a wife now, like for
mm,
real, for real. And again, just rip all of that. We talk about stripping the mess and the impurities from the gold. That was that moment where it's like, no, you can't lie to God. Like, this is going to come back at you. You can't have a double standard life. You have to be all in or all out. And so um, I went back home, and I eventually found myself out of the place because I repented. I was like, wow, I never thought that this would end up like this, but
yeah.
it did. And now I have a moment to reflect, you know.
Mm,
And so in
mm,
my reflection, I started to think about what it is I really wanted and how I could really genuinely live my life from a perspective of of truth and honesty as much as possible, as painful and as afraid as I was to do so. Um, I was at least going to rest in the fact that I told the truth, you
yeah.
know. So when I
Yeah.
did that, it was a liberating experience. I still worried, I still wonder to this day, like, what was I so afraid of, to be really myself.
Mm,
So yeah, that was rock bottom for me, but
mm,
it was a beautiful experience because it just helped me to be more genuine, you know.
yeah.
And I got to spend the last Christmas with my grandfather because he passed away
Okay.
like a month after that. Yeah,
Mm,
that was great. That
yeah.
was great.
So, what was your strength in that time, or who was your strength in that time?
In the time that my grandfather passed away, or
Facing your adversity, and as well as your grandfather. Like, what was your
oh,
strength in that
when I
life?
got dumped, my only strength was God. Like, I cling to the
Mm,
church. I found a church. I ended up with my cousin Melinda because she lives in England. So I took
mm,
the train to from where I was. I took the train to her house. She was having a baby. Like, she was days away from having a baby. The baby came
mm,
while I was there. And
oh,
yeah, and my aunt was like, "You got to leave because you can't be here with your depression, and my daughter's having a child." I'm like, where am I gonna go? Like, I have no place to go. She's like, I don't know, but you can't be here, you know? And I was like, wow, it's cold, man. But
mm,
anyways, I
yeah.
I I had some relationships that I had maintained back home with my boss and stuff, and so he was like, I'll put you up in a place, and he got me a ticket back home and the job if I wanted to stay in England, and I decided to go back home. But I went to church every day in this time.
Mm,
Where she lives, where my cousin lives, there's a big Russian community. And I don't know if you know many Russians, but they're really big on their Catholic church. So
mm,
there was
okay.
like one in every area. And I just would go there and I'd sit in the back. And the priest came to me one day and he was just like, "Sister, you look like you're this blue eyed, blonde hair guys, like, you look like you're going through a lot right now." And I would just cry, like ugly cry, not like not like a little glistening tear. It was ugly.
Mm,
And he would just be
Mm.
like, there, whenever you want to talk about it, you can. But I couldn't even speak it. Like, I couldn't
Mm.
even speak. I hadn't even accepted that this was what had happened. So he just said, like, everything has a purpose and a reason why it happened that way, and it's only there for you to get closer to God. God is paying attention. He's listening. He's here. He's here. Um, and I really believe that. I really believe that. Well, I really didn't have a choice. It's like, I'm good. My life is great. I don't need him, whatever. No, it was like, well, if you don't have this, then what do you have? So,
Yeah.
once I did that, everything kind of fell together.
Mm.
And I was able to go back home and get the
Okay.
answers that I needed. And then I met my husband like a week later. And I was just like, boy, bye. I'm not interested. I am not, no. But he was very persistent. So,
Yeah.
anyways, that's another story.
Yeah. Well, you definitely have a testimony, an impactful one at that. So, what advice would you give to someone who is struggling right now to overcome their personal problems?
Just a minute. So thank you guys for joining us on Instagram. I will be linking Tiana in this video, and we will continue on Patreon, on YouTube. Bye. My advice would be that hang on a second. I wrote it. No, I didn't write it. Okay. My advice would be to make sure that you're self-aware. I think self-awareness is key and paramount, and not self-aware like make a list of all the things that you're good at and with all the things that you're bad at.
Mm.
Self-aware means that you are able to put yourself in the shoes of the people around you and think about how they experience you. So that means that you got to be able to look at yourself in a very painstaking way, and rid yourself of this self-righteous, I'm perfect type
Yeah.
of idea, and really embrace that there are things about you that people may not tell you because they're afraid to, or they don't want to hurt your
Mm.
feelings. And more of that you have, the more work you have to do.
Mm.
So self-awareness, and that leads to humility. You have to be willing to listen and humble enough to hear, receive, and make the necessary changes, or say, I don't think that person is true, and it's okay that they think that way about me. I'm good. I'm a boss. um so those things are important. Self-awareness and to humility leads to the ability to understand that there is a force at work greater than ourselves,
Mhm.
that um that is in charge, but not like Santa Claus is. You know what I mean? Like, this is not like I'm going to give my problems to the Lord and I'm going to give this to the Lord. No, the Lord is there to help you be a spiritual being, to be open, to be connected with Him.
Mm.
But you have to be willing, again, to have that connection and know that there are some things beyond your control,
Yeah.
and not to be controlling, but allow yourself to be controlled by that force. And the fourth thing would just be to have fun, live in the now. We are always planning for the future and saying I'll be happy when, but there's a lot to be happy about now. you know we're living, breathing. We have all our senses, or at least I hope we do. um, and we're able to enjoy that experience. My grandfather passed away, a man bedridden and not able to remember some of the beautiful things that he had experienced in his life,
Mm.
traveling all over the world, being able to walk and, you know, feed himself. And it just always reminded me how fragile life is. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
You look
And
very thoughtful. Like, what are your thoughts on the
I'm
last
loving
one?
this. This is my free therapy. Yeah, I really,
Bullshit.
this is amazing. Um, so how someone walks this life, it can be influenced by how they were brought up, either by their household or even culturally.
Hmm.
So you advocate for normalizing therapy in the Black community.
Right, right.
How did you get involved in that? And how is that different from self-help? And what do you do in that regards?
I think when people think about self-help, like when I first started on my journey, okay, so backing up a little bit, so I was in these streets, right? Like when after I had my daughter, I was in these streets, and she's like, yes. I was in a relationship with a young man that I really wanted to marry, and he didn't want to marry me. And I kept telling myself that he probably would change his mind, but I was too afraid to have the conversation up front. So my spiritual journey has a lot to do with personal relationships with men. And that has a lot to do with the fact that my father wasn't present in my life, and my stepfather died suddenly when I was at a pivotal point in my life. I was 11, and because, well, not because of that, but consequently around the same time I had my first relationship, and that led to a rape. And I didn't tell anyone about it until I was about 17. I think I told my mom first, and my mom was devastated because, like any mother, you feel like, you were present, and she knew she wasn't, and it wasn't her fault that she wasn't present. I mean, she had just lost her husband, and, she had 5 kids that she had to now take care of. And I kept telling myself that that this happened all the time, and that I could just fix it, or it didn't matter. And it took a long, painful journey, um, because I felt like that's all men wanted, and I didn't know that. Yeah, like I didn't know thinking that was a skewed vision of male female relationships, right? Um, so the first time I started getting into therapy, it was a lot. Like it was a lot of unpacking. And I remember thinking to myself, because I would go to my friend, she was a clinical nurse, and she handed me a book called Men That Hate Women and the Women That Love Them. And I literally, Tiana, I opened that book and I just closed it right back up again. Like the first 5 pages or the first 5 sentences of the first chapter were so heavy. I was just like, I ain't ready for this. And had I read that book, maybe I wouldn't have wasted or spent 6 years of my life with a person that didn't want to marry me. But not his fault. I went back and forth, played a lot of games, and she counseled me the whole time. And some of the things that she said were good, and some of them were destructive. And so I feel like, when I started going back to church and I spoke to my friend who is a priest and who's also a psychologist, um, that it became clearer and clearer to me that we suffer too much in silence. And suffering in silence is not the same as having something psychologically wrong with you. And if you do have something psychological wrong with you, there are way more of us than have those psychological things wrong with us than there are those who are completely balanced. That's why we are working around here acting the way we act. Let me speak from the I, okay? Um, like yeah, because I at this point I had my daughter, and I knew there was something wrong. Like I knew it. I could feel it. I could feel it right at my throat. And my mother came home, and me it was better. Somebody told my mother, Nehanda needs her mother, right? To this day, that was the most profound thing anybody had ever told my mom. She was so hurt. She was just like, what do you mean? My daughter's fabulous and perfect. And it was because of this situation. And, back in our day, in my time, we had the elders, right? They would come around and they would just speak to us and talk about relationships. And I feel like they were more open than our parents are about
Mm.
relationships. What went wrong? What didn't go wrong? Like my grandma was straight up with me, you know? She was just like, yeah, he did that. And I left him too, Like, but you're still with him. Well, what else am I gonna do? I have 7 kids. Like, where am I gonna take all of these kids? you know, I ain't got nowhere to go. So I was just like,
You're
wow.
honest.
Yeah, she was very honest, and at least it helped me to understand that marriage was a commitment. So I could at least identify. But anyways, when I started to do therapy, like on and off, dabbling, I struggled with the stigma of like, you're crazy, you know? And there's something wrong with you. And
Mhm.
I got really sick, like physically sick. And no one could figure out what was wrong with me. And my doctor just was like, because he had seen me in church like every day at this point. He was just like, "Well, how is your stress levels?" And I just started bawling. I was just asking a question. It's routine, Well, he said, "Well, at least you're working. Your body's giving you feedback that there is something emotional that needs taken care of." So I went on retreats, and the more I did it routinely, the more results I could see. And during the pandemic, I started going back because I realized that there were some things that worked well for the time that I was in therapy at that time. But now that I'm a married woman, there is some different kind of work that needs to be done, you know? And I no longer have my community like I had back home. So I've tried to form a new community and have someone speak to me that's professional to some of the issues that I've experienced. And, she and I got to talking, and she was like, yeah, like a lot of this is very common. And when I started to do my work as a private practitioner, and way back when I was doing it with the award program, people would come up to me because I would speak out about abuse. Women, like half or more than half of the women would say, I've had this happen to me, or I've had that happen to me. And I'm like, this is too common, and it's not normal, or is it okay? Like, there's something
Mhm.
called PTSD, there's
Yeah.
depression, there's anxiety, there's so many different issues that you experience that you pass on, carry, and suffer from, and you can suffer physically as well.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm such a huge advocate of therapy, because I feel like we have just been stereotyped as Black women, especially, to just be strong. And that's inhuman. That's like, to me, that's like emotional slavery, robbing you of the ability to want to acknowledge that you're feeling and you're hurting. And
Yeah.
something needs to be done about that. And so I love the church, as you know now. I'm religious and spiritual, but I detest when people talk about give it to the Lord and we prayed about it. No, 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 no. I mean, there is pray about it, and there is, yo, I came home from war. Yo, I was molested. Yo, my father was an abusive alcoholic. That pray about it is not gonna work. That triggers me so much when I hear people say that.
Mhm.
And that has
Yeah.
to change because we have been a disenfranchised people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, as people of color, as minorities, as indigenous people, we have suffered a lot of injustices. And I don't like to say like we need to dwell on them and rail up in a little bitch group, but um I feel like there needs to be a place for the healing and the unpacking to take place on an
Yeah.
individual and a group level, and we're not going to get
Mhm.
there if we are condemning therapy.
Yeah. So we do need more professional help, individually and as a
Absolutely.
community.
Yeah.
So tell me more about your crossover program and the marriage preparation process.
The crossover program is a dual program for parents and
Mhm.
young people and young adults
Mhm.
who didn't have the experience or the opportunity to have like a rites of passage. So like a bar
Mhm.
mitzvah or a 15 años. I think that that welcoming in to a community, and that embracing and that sense of responsibility and acknowledgement that a person gains when they go from boy to man or woman, girl to woman, is
Mhm.
really important to be celebrated, acknowledged, and to be given some responsibilities and to have some discussion about that, right? And and some activities around that. So uh, in the crossover program, the men, they get in a group and they call the boy's name. Let's say you were Tiano. Where is Tiano? I've come for Tiano. And then the mother says, oh, don't take my boy. Tiano, where are you? And then Tiano comes out and he says, here I am. And his father comes up to him, if his father is available, and says, okay, today we start your rites of passage movement. And they take him off with the men and they scream as they're taking him off, yeah, Tiano, Tiano. and, and they, in a group, of course, you have to call everybody and make sure everybody's there.
Yeah.
They all go off screaming and cheering because men they're different, their experience is all about going out and being a part of the men and whatever else they do. I'm not even going to try to pretend like I know. But I did do my research because I did men's studies because I wanted to be married. And that's what the marriage. So the women's part of the crossover is discussing things I don't even want to know. Is discussing and talking about things that make a good wife and what is womanhood and gender roles. Are they important? Since we're in such a very politically dynamic gray lining paradigm shift, I think it's really important to have this kind of conversation. Like, you know, can this be part of the problem that we're experiencing as a humanity, as a human race? um, and also putting that to marriage, like what is the role of marriage, what is the role of a woman in marriage? And so the marriage process is a little bit longer, and at the moment we're focusing a lot on the wife, you know because dare I say it, am I going to get in trouble? Because of these modern women, man. I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on. I don't need a man. I'ma freeze my eggs. You look, yo, if somebody robbed you right now and you call the police, would you want the police person to be a man or a woman? Well, it depends. Am I being robbed by a man or a woman? Who commits most of the crimes in
Yeah.
this world? You do not want a woman coming to your door to wrestle some robber. Like, stop that. When your
Yeah, we need
Amazon shipments don't come, are you blaming the women? No, men are the ones doing these. When you have no car to drive, what you go do? Walk.
to.
Who makes the cars? Like, don't be talking about you don't need no man. No, I don't support that. So we discuss things like that so that men and women have a healthier appreciation for each other in a marriage and understand who's to do what.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what can we all expect in the next coming year? Any exciting news?
Yes, we have the crossover experience. It's taking place on the 18th. I know we were supposed to be talking about that in more detail soon. Um, and that's gonna be from February. I'm sorry, that's gonna be from mid-February to early March.
Okay.
So that's gonna be our first group of people connecting with some of the churches and some of the schools to get people involved in the process. Anything else? Anything else? I'm launching my website. My tech guy just recently got his booster shot, so he is not available. But yeah, poor guy. I hope he feels better soon. But yeah, so we're launching our website and we're branching out into Austria.
Okay, nice.
And but this first cohort is such a big deal that I think I'm just going to see how everything unfolds before I plan anything after that. Besides that, and the marriage preparation course, which is going to start in the summer. Yeah, we should probably start to promote that now because I feel like, not I feel like, what am I talking about? What am I talking about? The statistics just came in. Marriages have gone up, I think, 60% since the pandemic. People are like, yeah, I do not want to be here with my own thoughts anymore. Someone take me, please. Anyone.
Mm.
No, I'm sure it's not like it's probably is like that. I left my husband here to go get my passport renewed, and by day 2 he was calling us like every day, like, if this is what being a bachelor feels like, I hope I die first.
Mm.
Like, I'm gonna leave you with these kids. I don't want to be left here by myself on this earth. No, but yeah, that's romantic. That's probably romantic or
So
sad,
sweet.
depends.
Romantic.
Yeah, let's go with romantic, right? So, what do you think of all of these things that I've had to say? Let me hear back from you.
Well, it's
I think
been
I'm gonna post this
impactful,
on. This
and
is gonna be on Patreon. Sorry. Yeah.
yes, yeah, it's been impactful, and I view you highly. So this is amazing.
Aw, thank
I'm
you.
taking notes. Yeah, you've been like speaking. I'm listening. I'm like, ooh, I like that. I love that. Okay, preach this. So yeah, I've enjoyed this conversation, and to wrap things up a bit, do you have any like call to action for everyone? Any words of advice to part?
Words of advice is good. Call to action.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that success is measured as the result of our own efforts.
Mm.
Actions based on the results of our own efforts. And so, if we want to be successful at anything in life, we have to act. And it doesn't matter. See, my daughter's putting up the Christmas decorations there. Merry Christmas. Um, so take action, and it doesn't matter if the action is in the wrong direction, because the sooner you know what direction to take, then you
Mhm.
can replicate it as much as possible so that you can get to where you need to be quicker. And so the call to action would then be to contact me and my lovely team of people. We're here for you. We want to help as much as possible. Book a session. We have our Christmas specials going on. I don't know what my prices are off the top of my head. I think it's starting at $300, and I know that might sound like a lot, but that's what her Jordans cost. I mean, that's the thing. I'm going to close with this. I find it pretty crazy when I talk to my clients who are professional women who invest a lot in their business, right? Like, I have a woman who I helped her to get herself online, and she told me that she invested $1,000 in her business, with this contraption and that thing. And so I'm just like, wow, you're willing to invest that kind of money in yourself? I'm like, absolutely. So I think it's the same thing for our personal lives, for the outcome. What's at stake is so great. I mean, I feel even weird trying to put a price tag on it, because you're talking about your future, your happiness, your finding love. Like, how can I price such a thing? And we tend to want to invest more in our outside things, like our business and our careers, our education, more than we do our personal things. And therapy is a really good example of that. It was affecting my efficiency on the job enough that too much was at stake for me to leave it up to chance and myself. And I went, and so I think that it is very paramount that people start to think of their lives in such a way that it is a serious investment, and a price tag is a minuscule thing to put on your future.
Healing is priceless, right?
Exactly. Healing is priceless. So thank you for that. I'm gonna write that down. Healing. You copyrighted yet? Is it yours?
Get it from you. I'm inspired by you.
Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh, this has been really fun.
Yes. Well, please
What's your
check the Honda. Okay. Healing is priceless, as we just mentioned.
yeah? What is your name on?
On Instagram,
Uh-huh. I can stop
it's
recording now, guys. Right? So thank you guys for can you sign us off, Tiana?
yes. So this has been an amazing, impactful, healing interview with Miss Nahanda Helmker with Forever Jewel. Please reach out to her. We will provide you with that information in the comments section. And yes, it's a blessing. The new year is coming up. It's time for healing.
Yes, it is. What's your name on Instagram?